So, welcome back to another episode of Living the Sky Life. I am honored to have my friend Pam Blanton with Partners for Housing back on. Pam was on my podcast. I'm still trying to figure out the math, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I was introduced to her by Betsy, Joe's mom. He doesn't go by Joey anymore. So, years ago, and I was still trying to navigate. I think Skylar was probably 18, and I was in the throes of adulthood starting and trying to figure out next steps for the future before our move to Colorado and all of the things. And Pam was so helpful. I was overwhelmed, I think, at the time because I wasn't yet ready to do the next step of his living arrangements and all of that. But fast forward now, he's 23. We're in Colorado. I'm ready, and we're already starting the process of figuring out where he's going to live next and all of those things. So I brought Pam back because I would love for those of you that aren't familiar with Partners for Housing to get to know her organization. It's phenomenal service provided to families. So yeah, so Pam, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Lori, and for the wonderful introduction.
You are a miracle worker. You really are. So tell the listeners, please, a little bit about Partners for Housing, when you started it, and kind of the mission and how it's evolved, if it has, over the years.
Yeah, so I started Partners for Housing in 2010 after working in the government for 17 years, 10 years in with the housing finance program and 7 years as housing coordinator for our developmental disabilities division at the county here in the Seattle area. And I started Partners for Housing with the idea of creating a roommate matching pool. And so we worked really hard on an assessment to match compatible roommates. And when families started completing the assessment, we recognized how many families were missing benefits that they could were eligible for, that their loved one was eligible for. People with reduced SSI. And the big thing was really showing families how to access Section 8 housing choice vouchers. So I left the county and started Partners for Housing with the idea of empowering families to create housing solutions that meet the unique needs of their loved one. So that's our mission, to help families create consumer-directed housing solutions, meaning family-driven and unique to the individuals living in the home. And it starts by making sure everybody has the benefits they're entitled to before they leave home, because that's how you make the solution affordable and sustainable long term.
And I do think that there's a way, we talk a lot in this area of caregivers for those with disabilities about person-centered. And there's your program also heavily enables that independence for those that are able to speak on their own behalf and to take part in the roommate search with their, loved ones and their caregivers and all of that. That presents such a unique and appropriate example of person first. It's not it's no longer the conversations of like placing our loved ones in assisted living and or group homes, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and those kind of scenarios. That's kind of it's a hated topic because we as caregivers and parents don't like thinking about next steps, but we're forced to think about next steps because we're not going to be around forever. So you present so many ideas and models that I had never thought about before we spoke. And I think there's probably a lot of listeners who also have only thought that there's assisted living and group home options out there for our loved ones. So can we talk a little bit about the different types of, you've mentioned, provider controlled, agency controlled, and how across the country they're all called various things that mean the same thing. So can we discuss some options that people have
Yeah.
nowadays?
Oh, and that's such a great question because it's so hard for families when they're starting to explore what's the right model for their loved one, when
Mhm.
you're looking at different opportunities across the nation, because every state uses different language to speak to their options. And so I want to tell everybody there's a great document out there, a great report. It's called A Place in the World. You
Mhm.
can find it on the Autism Housing Network website. But they do a great job of getting at the common nomenclature. Like, how can you talk about what you want for your loved one without saying group home? Because nobody
Mhm.
knows what group home means. And so we really talk about a provider controlled setting. So a provider controlled setting is when a person owns the home and provides care. So in Colorado, you would call those host homes. In the state of Washington, we call them adult family homes. Many states, they call that model a group home. It's often licensed and funded by Medicaid. So that is a provider controlled setting. Another option that you see in many states call it supported living, but they have different names. It's when the state contracts with an agency to provide that care to the home. So the agency is hiring caregivers who come in and provide that support. Typically, the individuals are paying their own rent and utilities, and then the state is funding an agency to provide the care. You also hear about a model called adult foster care. In Washington state, in other states, it's called a companion home. In this model, um, a family would invite an individual with disabilities to live with them in their family. So adult foster care, it's that title is kind of descriptive for what you would see. Um, and then what we really help families set up is shared living. Shared living is a consumer controlled model. So with shared living, very family driven and person centered. In shared living, the families have control over location, over caregivers, over roommates. It's a very person-centered housing model. And we've helped families create 66 shared living homes serving 134 people. And every single one of those homes looks as different as my home does and yours, right? They're very
Yeah.
unique people living in the home. So that document, A Place in the World, I encourage everybody to look at that to really be able to articulate the model they're looking for. And that document also um, describes 20 different successful housing models across the nation.
Wow, there's
Kind
20.
of fun to look at. It's a great place to start when you're
Yeah.
thinking about, what do I want?
Yeah. It's interesting too, because when we moved here, my mind only was on group homes because that's all I had ever heard. And I was told so many times by case managers and the ARC of Colorado and just various places that they don't really have group homes here in this state. They've done away with a lot of that. It just wasn't working out, whether it was caregivers, over turning over all of the time and they just weren't able to staff, or people, placed in the group homes that weren't a good fit, which always brings me to the conversations that we've had years ago about the consumer controlled model that you just spoke of, and how families have much more control on roommates. And one of the things I love so much about your Partners for Housing site, and when families work with you about the portal that you initially mentioned, like your whole idea of starting this, it's almost like a match.com for, Skylers of the world and parents and caregivers to find applicable roommates. I think we all have those fears that in a group home setting or something that's not in our control, that Skylar might be placed or our child might be placed somewhere where maybe a client screams all night and doesn't sleep ever, and Skylar actually sleeps pretty good, and just a lot of varying things that would cause both of them to have a really uncomfortable living arrangement, and their parents too, and just all of the things. So, as far as your Partners for Housing website is set up, it is like that, correct? Like Match.com, and parents can get together. And can you share some examples of,
Yeah.
families that have? gone through several and like finally found a match or a fit?
Yeah, so our roommate matching platform is a platform with profiles of people that families who are have gone through our consultation process are invited in. So it's by invitation only. Most people are invited in, but we want to make sure it's a good fit. So we it's an invitation process.
Hmm.
Um, the platform really, the profiles really focus on lifestyle preferences and favorite activities. There's maybe 3 or 4 questions about disability, but we're not looking to match people with the same types of disabilities. I had a
Right.
dad come to me and say, I have a daughter with diabetes and I want her to live with 3 other girls with diabetes. And I said, well, we don't really match that way.
Yeah. Let them branch out a little bit.
Yeah, we friendships are based on shared interests. And
Yes.
so and lifestyle preferences matter a lot, even for best friends. Maybe they can't live together if they have different lifestyle preferences. So those are important things to think about. And disability isn't the important thing. We have people with really significant disabilities living with people who are much more independent. So, it's about the connection between the people. So the
Hmm.
platform is there for families to explore, and they can, search by geographical area and gender if they want, or care needs. There's a few things they can search for. But there's no algorithm around it because really it's a double match in this consumer-driven model.
Hmm.
It's a double match because first of all and foremost, you want to make sure that your roommates are compatible. That's the most important thing. But it's also important that the parents are compatible and that they share vision and values. And that's sometimes the more difficult match. So, so the platform with the roommates, you can reach out, you can connect. We encourage you to spend time getting to know each other. And then that's where you see, okay, do we share vision and values with this other family? Is this a family we can work with? Or maybe our loved ones will be friends but maybe we don't share the same vision and values, but we have a new friendship here. So it's, our process is really a planning process. If people are in crisis, we refer them on because this isn't a fast solution. But
Hmm.
for families who want to plan, then, it's a great way to start finding like-minded families.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's important point to reiterate too. It's not a fast process, nor should it be a fast process. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want this to be an overnight decision. Like we click a button and we find someone that we think on paper is compatible to Skylar, and then we all find a location and we move them in, and it's like it's not like college dorm stuff where you're just potluck and you just kind of get what you get. And that's what you get in a group home setting. But when you're in control, I would much rather meet the parents and align and, make sure if I'm a helicopter mom, maybe they're a helicopter mom and we're both sharing, delivering food and things like that. I don't know. So I think that is hugely
And
important.
it's also important in the early days, one of our first shared living homes, one family had purchased a home and had a caregiver and was just looking for a roommate. So she went on our website, they found somebody, and within 4 months, the guys were living together and they were having the time of their life. They loved
Aw.
it. They were great friends, they were active in the community. But the parents didn't share vision and values, and it didn't work. So they broke up because of
Oh.
and then he had to go home, and it was very confusing. So
Oh.
typically, when you go into a new living arrangement, you're going to be signing a 1-year lease. And so it's just important to take your time to
Mhm.
make sure that you have the right partnership to make it because you're going to work together to support the home.
Mhm. Now, we talked about other options like host homes and whatever they're called in various states. Um, And those are usually provided by the waivers and by Medicaid, and that stuff is all kind of controlled by the states. And I understand that whole process, and I know that at least here in Colorado, they do call them host homes, and they do thorough background checks and they vet everyone, and the case managers are the ones who kind of decide, if Skylar's personality and his needs and all of those things is a good fit for a particular family, and all of that is controlled outside of me. Um, so for me and moving forward with Skylar, and I've been pretty open about this on my pages and social media and stuff, that we really are looking to purchase a home for him. I just like the idea of him having something after we're gone and he can't get kicked out of a Section 8, approved living arrangement, or he gets, booted out from another family that owns the home and they no longer want him there. I just don't want to worry about him long term. So for families that have the ability or some funding to be able to do that type of thing, can you explain the Section 8 process? Because it may be common to some families, but it was very foreign to me. I did not think that Skylar was somebody that was eligible for Section 8, I never connected the two things until we spoke years ago. And so now I'm fully clear on all of it, but I don't think a lot of families are.
Yes, and Section 8 is a crucial funding piece to make family-driven housing, this consumer-directed model, financially sustainable long term. And a lot of families don't know how to access. And, we were fortunate in the Seattle area in the late 90s to our housing authority launched a special program, a housing choice voucher program for people with disabilities. And so we had a lot of access to vouchers and we really learned how to use them. And so we have unique experience here at Partners for Housing with Section 8. So Section 8 is a federal housing subsidy. It's funded by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and it's administered by local housing agencies. And when a person has a Section 8 voucher, they pay 30% of their income toward rent, and the housing authority pays the rest, up to a limit set by HUD based on your particular geographical area. So for people with disabilities, because of the Fair Housing Act, there's a lot of accommodations that you can request that really make shared living a viable option. So one of the things is if you're a person with a disability that needs a live-in caregiver, you can request reasonable accommodation for a live-in caregiver, and the housing authority will actually give the individual a 2-bedroom voucher. So they'll pay 30% of their income for rent. They'll get a 2-bedroom voucher so they can offer free rent to a live-in caregiver. That's huge, right? Because
Mhm.
that starts to form the foundation of your compensation package for your caregiver. Other accommodation requests are, typically you can't rent from a relative, but if you're a person with disabilities, you can request reasonable accommodation to rent from a relative. Now,
Mhm.
you can't rent your bedroom in your family home. So
Mhm.
you can't rent from a relative and live within the same walls as that relative you're renting from. But let's say a family has a rental property or they have an ability to purchase something, you can request accommodation for that. And by the way, I'll throw in there are some special loan programs for families who want to
Yes.
purchase for a loved one with disabilities. And, lower interest, lower down, you end up owning it like an owner occupied. And we have had some of our families use that loan program, put enough down so that their mortgage payment equals the Section 8 payment standard in their area. And
Mhm.
once they get Section 8, they put it in place and they have a nice little asset that grows over time. And
Mhm.
they have a long-term stable housing for their loved one.
Yeah.
Sometimes these families then will bring in other roommates, sometimes just a caregiver. Like I said, unique for each situation. I'll say one more thing about accommodations. So families are able to put their loved one's name on lists all over the nation because this is what families say. Yes, Section 8 is great, but our housing
Get it.
authority hasn't opened their list in 10 years,
Yeah.
or, we never, but you can put their name on lists all over the nation. There's no limit to the number of lists you can put your loved one's name on. Typically, When your name comes up in a particular jurisdiction, you have to live there for 1 year before you can transfer your voucher to another jurisdiction. But if you're a person with disabilities, you can request reasonable accommodation to transfer your voucher early. And that's what we're showing families how to do. So it's still a process. Families who follow our process, it still takes, up to 2 years typically to get a voucher. But once they get it, they have it for all of their life, right?
Mhm.
As long as they follow the rules of the program. And it's a great addition to their benefit package.
I think that was one of the things I was wondering, though, with all of the changes, politically going on and programs in Medicaid, and we've all experienced the Medicaid cuts and that's affecting our caregiving fees and all of the things. Do we run the risk of Section 8 going away, or are our loved ones with disabilities a little bit more protected because at least I've always been told by my prior case manager back in Indiana that when they're kind of seeking to remove Section 8 from families or from people and any of the government benefits, they're looking for people who are blatantly kind of abusing the system. That people like Skylar who cannot work, who get SSI for a reason, and some of these other benefits are kind of the last on the list to be cut from these programs because they clearly need them. But I don't know how much faith I put in those things, but have you heard anything about that as far as Section 8 going away
So,
or
yeah.
maybe?
So in my 35 years, I've never seen them take a voucher from a person with disabilities. I don't have a crystal ball, but you know
Yeah.
what? Just don't see that happening. And administrations change and things change, but I've never seen that happen. Um, there is less available, but still today there are 44 open Section 8 wait lists across the nation. So
Mhm.
vouchers are still being issued.
Yeah.
We've been showing families how to apply all over the nation and port their voucher for many years. The past couple years, we've been starting to see some denials to port, meaning the family gets to the process and they say, no, you can't do that. Typically, the reason is if you're moving from a very small jurisdiction to a bigger metropolitan area where the payment standard is significantly more.
Yeah, the rent or the yeah.
So sometimes they're saying no, although I'll tell you, last week we had a voucher port from a small community to New York where the payment standard was 3 times the amount. So every housing authority makes their own decision. Another example, we had a family recently, mom had her son on 80 lists across the nation. His name came up 3 times. Two of the ports were denied, and he got it on the third one. Still had a voucher in a year and a half.
Yeah.
Um, so, you know, I don't see them cutting the program completely.
Mhm.
And I'm also an optimistic person, so I
I try to be. I
I
really
try
do.
to look on that side, but I don't have a crystal ball. But really, getting on all the lists you can, we have to just go with what we have for
Yeah.
now. And it's working. One other accommodation, it's actually not even accommodation, but one other benefit of Section 8 is if your vision is your son or daughter living in a home with two roommates, two friends that they grew up with, if one person gets the voucher, you can add the others to the voucher. Unrelated people with disabilities meet the Section 8 definition of family. So um, as it will always be that person's voucher, but as long as they're living together, the others can benefit. Huge. This is huge because,
Yeah.
when you're thinking about creating a shared living solution, you really need to think about it in two pieces. You have your rent and you have your services, right? And so who can afford rent on SSI? Nobody. You need that housing subsidy. And the benefit of the extra bedroom for the living caregiver is a little bit of a crossover that can help.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, and these are all the things that no one tells you except Partners for Housing. I mean, seriously, it's a huge plug, but I don't know any other organizations like yours that service families, nationwide. It's not like you just are helping families that live in the Washington State area where you are. This is a program, and a convenience for families like mine living anywhere in the state. So, how do people best access you guys? And there is a fee, and I mean, there should be. You have so much information that you're sharing with us. There has to be some sort of compensation. But the beauty of that, and I'll let you explain kind of how people sign up and how they get with you. But again, I signed on with you guys a couple years back after our podcast, and I have full access to everything forever. It's not like a 1 year you have to use the navigate all of your tools on your websites and then it expires and you have to pay again. It has proved so lucrative and beneficial for me right now because we are in the throes of finding Skylar alternative living, and I'm just back into understanding Section 8 and getting on all of the lists and doing all the things that you advised me to do before. So, how can families reach you?
And so I'll say, and that's intentional too, because we want families to start planning and think
Yes.
big so they can dream big instead of being sort of paralyzed with the fear of, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? So, if you start when if your loved one is 17 and you want to say, what is adulthood going to look like? It's a nice time to get in there. We'll show you how to apply for all the benefits.
Mhm.
And if you're not ready yet, you can at least then say, "Oh, I can do what I want to do." And then you can use the next few years to dream and then come back and access what you need. So the first step with families is our benefits and housing review. That's an online questionnaire. The fee for that is $500. So it includes the online questionnaire. And I'll say a lot of families say the questions themselves, get them thinking about things they hadn't
Mhm.
previously thought of. Once they complete and submit that, we do a benefits review and schedule a follow-up consultation, usually about an hour on Zoom, to talk about housing options, their vision, Section 8, all that stuff. They also have access to our roommate matching pool, so they can set up a profile and go in. We say start early there too. Even if your loved one is 18, but you're thinking, okay, we're not going to be ready till they're 22 or 23, get in there and see who else is in there and start some conversations. Um, what we started doing in early 2025 was maintaining a list of all the open section wait lists across the nation on our platform. So it
Mhm.
used to be we referred people to another site, and now we maintain it all on our website. So you can log in and you can click on through your dashboard, click on open section 8 with wait lists, and you'll see all the ones that are open. Now they open and close all the time. We give you the direct link to click on. We show you how to answer the questions. We give you a document. We have a tracker so you can keep track of which housing authorities you apply for. And for people who do our benefits and housing review, you have forever access to that um, service. So that's our kind of get started package. We have a few other offerings. One we started this year is just for people who are interested in Section 8. So it's $200 to start and then $19.95 a month. You'll have access to the portal, yes, for the list of open Section 8 wait lists. We usually encourage people just to go up a little bit to the benefits and housing review, because if you think of $19.95 a month and it's taken about 2 years and that 200, you're about there anyway. And for us, we love to have all of the information. And when you complete the questionnaire, we really understand those questions were based on years of experience of getting to know a family, so we could really give you a good comprehensive consultation.
Mhm. I'm living proof of that because I filled it out when Sky was probably 18. And, I've kept in touch with you and Jamie, who's amazing. I wish she could be here today with us too. She is your right hand, I know. But you guys are so quick with email responses too, or setting up a call like we did the other night, just because I wanted to catch back up and with our move and everything that's going on here. And, one of the things that we don't talk enough about, but you also told me on that phone call a few weeks ago was your first question is, okay, do you have SNAP benefits for Skylar yet? And I'm like, what? He doesn't need that. I'm fine. I can afford the groceries. And you're like, Lori, you can't afford his groceries when you are no longer here. And also, his SSI is not enough money to pay rent and for food. And we all know utilities and all of the things. Our kids don't make enough with that. And so I applied for his SNAP benefits. I don't know what it's called everywhere else. I think it's SNAP around the
It's
world, around the country, I mean. But yeah, he got that within a week. I did a phone call with them and they approved it. And so now I buy his groceries separate from ours and use his card and do all of that. But these are the things that we just don't think of as caregivers because we're doing all the caring and we're doing all of the taking care of the needs and all of the things without thinking twice about it. And you have to be, I'm living proof of this. You have to be thinking forward for when you are not able to provide all of these things. It shouldn't be a burden on our loved ones to figure out their needs when we're not here to do it. So I
and
highly
getting
encourage people to get started on all these things as soon as they can.
and getting the benefits while your loved one is living at home so that when you're ready to take that next step, you're not trying to get the benefits then because it's
Yeah,
a big transition to move. It's also a great way to learn independent living skills. So now Skylar has a card and he can go
and
and
swipe it himself.
pick out some of his, make his, grocery list or whatever he's able to do.
Mhm.
But, it's a great independent skill. It's and I don't know any young person that doesn't love that independence of going
Yeah,
shopping and paying for it.
yes, for sure. I mean, these benefits are for people like Skylar, who need them. And so I'm no longer like hiding behind using those. I mean, that's what they're made for. And so I want him to get every single resource possible, that's available to him, and to utilize those. Um, so I will link your website for sure so that people can, log on and join if that's something they're interested in doing or just kind of monitoring the information and when they're ready. But again, I can't stress enough about signing on and starting the process because it's a lot. It's overwhelming. Just like when your child's diagnosed and we're trying to figure out therapies and all the things, this is the next phase for those of us with kids that are 16 and older. If you haven't already started planning, you should really start looking at the options that your state has and understanding the lingo. Like you said, a place in the world, that document is going to be critical to understanding the various housing options that are available, and it'll give you time to really think, and if you can talk to your loved one and see what they want to do. If maybe they think a host home option is what they would prefer to do, or if they're like, nope, I want a roommate, I want to live somewhere else, with people that we select, then it's great if they can be part of the process for this.
Absolutely is great. And so I would also say that we offer webinars every month. So if you go to our website, you can see those. We talk a little bit about what we offer, but then what we do is open it up for questions. And so more than half of it is answering family questions. We have families that come over and over and over because they learn from the questions that other families ask. So encourage people to join us for a webinar and, also to share a story of, of a family whose loved one moved. They set their loved one up in a shared living home. She is a young woman with pretty high support needs. She's nonverbal. She uses a wheelchair. She has a Hoyer lift, so requires 24/7 support. And her mom was saying, "Oh, I just don't know if she's happy because she can't tell me if she's happy or not." And then one day her mom called me and she says, "Oh my gosh, you won't believe what happened. I was over at her house and she rolled over to the table, picked up my keys and put them in my purse and gave me this look like, Mom, it's time for you to leave." So she said, I left. And maybe I should feel sad about that, but I feel so grateful. So, we see that with individuals have the ability to communicate and verbally, and those who don't have the ability to communicate verbally, that they show it. They show their um, love of their independence. And, for a family to watch that happen,
Hmm.
it's the best part of my job when a family calls and says, "Oh my gosh, he was home for the weekend and now he couldn't wait to get back to his home. He said, I want to go back home." So
Yes.
it's a difficult process, but a step at a time, it can happen. So,
Yeah, and it's the parents that other caregivers who have taught me those lessons too. I've had several guests over the years on my podcast that their children have moved into a different type of a living situation from in their home, and they've said the same things. They, of course, were concerned about it, and they didn't want to cut the ties, which I don't either with Skylar. No one can care for him like I can, all of the things that we say to ourselves. But they all have said that their children and young adults are thriving, and they too are like, they come home for the every other weekend or something, and they'll say, I want to go home. Like, they appreciate the independence that we've given them, and in some cases the behaviors have improved. Things have improved because I try to tell myself that I think some of the times Skylar is seemingly acting out or angry with us because we are all he's ever had. We're his friends, we're his, parents, we're all the things, and he's tired of us. I mean, I get it. My
and
daughter was too. She wanted to go to college as soon as she could to get out of here. So I get it.
that's typical, right?
Mhm.
That's what young adults do. They push back
Yeah.
because they're ready,
So,
right?
yeah, I just don't think we should look at it like we're doing something to them. I think this is out of love. We're giving them an opportunity to have a life beyond us, that they have some choices to make and things they get to do, and it's a beautiful thing instead of a sad thing. I know it's hard. I mean, I'm living it. I understand it, but we have to cut the cord eventually and
And
give
you
them a
never get
chance.
what you want in crisis. So if you wait for
Yes.
crisis, you're going to get what you get.
Yeah.
And if you plan early and start the steps early, you get what you want and you can dream it and you can make it happen.
And monitor it too. I like the ability that I'm able enough now to, once we have this all set up, I can monitor his caregivers. I can hire and fire. I can, make sure he's well taken care of, instead of, like you said, in a crisis situation, I'm not going to be able to do anything, and nor is he. He's just going to get placed in the first place that's has an open room, and that'll be the end of it. So I like being a controlling person. This is beautiful for me. This is
And
something I
all
love.
the parents out there too, you deserve to have your peace,
Yeah.
peaceful time of night life and watching him or her thrive outside your
Yeah.
home. And it's a beautiful thing. And I'll say one other little story of a family that I worked with. The mom was diagnosed with cancer. She went through treatment. She was recovered and healthy. And she said, okay, we got to get him set up. So they worked together and they got him set up in a really great situation. 5 years later, it came back, and her husband called me the the day after she died and said she she smiled at me and said, I'm so glad he is safe and we have
Hmm.
him set up. So, he didn't have to call me then, that soon after. But you know what? That's what we want. We want to be able to go and know everything's okay.
Yeah, have some peace of mind.
Yeah.
Did you say that you and or Jamie are together? Do you guys do talks around the country for nonprofits, or do you do things like that to bring, Partners for Housing into communities that have, that don't listen to my podcast, or that haven't, heard about you guys and all of these things?
Yeah. So we started in Washington State, and we had a huge grant in Washington State, really. And we served a lot of families over 3 years and built out all of our technology. And that grant ended mid 2025, and we are in the process of expanding nationally. So we're working in Colorado, as you said. We're working in California. Families actually reach out to us all over the nation. So really, our Section 8 expertise, a lot of them are coming from for. But we're looking to partner with organizations and to bring our services to your community. So we were just at the ARC Leadership Convention in California and presented on how to collaborate to create innovative housing solutions. So, if you in your community know of money available, let us know. We can apply for it. When we're able to offer our services for free, which by the way, we do now in Colorado. So we got the grant in
I
Colorado.
just
So
missed
families,
that. That's okay. I'm happy to pay.
yeah, families can sign up and that the $500 is paid for by the grant. I should say was paid for by the grant. We've applied for a second, haven't heard the final word on it. We're hopeful to get
Yeah.
that funding. But when we're able to offer our services for free in a new community, first of all, we seed the roommate pool. Plus, families can get a sense of what we do so they can validate us to the other families. So we're looking for that. So sometimes we apply for the funding, sometimes the other organization applies for the funding and we partner. We're a small organization and we're looking to do that. So feel free to
Okay.
reach out if anybody has ideas on funding opportunities in their community, if they'd like to see our services offered
Yeah.
at
That would
no
be
cost.
fantastic. I mean, I know a lot of families are strapped and,
Mhm.
$500 sounds like a lot. But again, I mean, if it's, I don't know if you guys offer payment plans or whatever, we can do, but the access that you guys provide, just even the beyond the roommate pool, the Section 8 vouchers and everything being in one place is unbelievably time saving because otherwise you'd have to go in, I don't know, through AI or something and search for all these counties that have vouchers, and then you have to keep track of when they're open and closed and all of that stuff. So it's just nice that as soon as Skylar's name appears on a voucher, I just reach out to you guys and say, okay, I just got Texas. What do I do? How do I get it portaled over to Colorado and all the things? Because I would probably mess that up. I don't want to mess it up for him.
Yeah, it's a process. And so really what we do first is just show people how to get on lists. And once, like you said, that your name starts coming up, reach back and say, hey, what do I do next? And then we help you with that.
Yeah.
So we always look at it one family at a time and one step at a time. And that's how you get where you're going,
Mhm.
especially in this really complicated process.
Yes. And isn't it nice though, too, if families are signing up from various states, it just strengthens your roommate pool. So if, I think you had said back in the day when we were planning to move that we would be your first family in Colorado in the pool. And so hopefully maybe you have more, but
Yeah.
we need it. I mean, we need more families to sign up so there are more roommates available to do that if that's the option you're going to go with. So,
Yeah, we do have more in Colorado because of the funding. See, it seeds a roommate pool because people are interested in that. We have over 300 people in our pool,
oh wow.
and we've served families in, I think, 18 states. So not everybody's interested in roommates, so not everybody goes in the pool. And, most of the people in our pool are in Washington State because that's where we had the big grant. But we're building in Colorado and we're going to build in other states as we go. So, yesterday we had our first person in our pool from Massachusetts. So not the first
Well,
not the first family we've served in Massachusetts, but the first family who was interested in um,
right.
looking for that potential roommate. So
That's awesome. Well, you have built such a beautiful, very, very informative service with Partners for Housing. And I'm just so grateful that we were introduced years ago and for all of your knowledge. It's helping so many families. And you just do this out of the kindness of your heart. When I learned back in the day that you don't have a child with disabilities that you did this for and then you're paying it forward, you're just paying it forward because you're a really wonderful person. So, for
well,
you to go through all of this for families like mine, and it doesn't impact you directly, I just think you're the best.
it's, it's very rewarding work, and I'm grateful to be able to, you know, make the world a little bit better. And, I did raise my kids with a woman who had
Mhm.
3 children and then adopted two with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So when I first raised my hand for that IDD space. It was for Lily and Annie.
Yeah.
But you get in there and honestly, it was so easy to make little improvements because I'd been in the system, so I could see some paths. So, I mean, I'm grateful. I'm
Yeah.
forever.
Well, we're forever grateful to you. Thank you so much, Pam.
Oh,
I
Lori.
really appreciate your time and everything that you've done. And I will link Pam's website up. So if you guys want to reach out to her directly, and if you have other questions, I'm sure she and her team will answer those for you. But yeah, thank you all so much for listening, and thanks, Pam, for your time.
Thank you, Lori.